What started Young Millionaire? Me, my desire, my ambition. I've been calling myself a young millionaire since I was 11 years old. I'm a young millionaire. It's always been like an embodiment, it's something I embody. One of those ways is through my clothing line, Young Millionaire. Another one of those ways is doing what I have a passion for, which is, trading and digital entrepreneurship. I've decided to, build a community around that and help people in my community really to learn the skill. So I didn't come out. I've always hated that term because straight people don't come out. There was like an internal conflict because on one hand, I grew up in church. Like I grew up learning the opposite of what I was feeling and what was developing inside of me. So coming out, I was really out for a while before it went inside my household, and then I was faced with a choice. You could be gay or you can be here, So I moved out at 17 and I never went back.
I am the head bitch in charge of my family. Everybody comes to me for everything. We're calling Lala. Lala's gonna figure it out. She's gonna do what she needs to do. 2 weeks after my wedding, it was Friday, May 26th, my brother died. I definitely didn't see that coming. I still remember getting the phone call, and I think I was like so in shock, I laid down and went back to sleep. It was crazy after that. And then I had a close friend to me. She passed away too. Wasn't expecting hearing that phone call. It was almost one of those things I was afraid to go to sleep because every time I was waking up, it was to bad news. I did get cold feet with wanting to do this. They didn't even get a chance to see the next day. They didn't get a chance to do what they wanted to do because we're all here on borrowed time. I might as well just complete my mission and do what I need to do and try to help make a difference in people's lives. I started dealing with a lot of traumas from my childhood. That's when I really touched base and got into praying and getting into God, and that's actually what helped me out of my dark place. That's why my boutique means so much to me because that saved me. There was a lot of domestic violence. My biological dad wasn't there. He used to say I wasn't his kid because I was too dark to be his kid. He provided as far as putting food on the table and a roof over our head, but a lot went on. We're always taught to be strong, but what do you do when you can't be strong anymore? You know what I mean? I wake up every day and I just try to be the best that I can be. I'm that girl who travels to like 12 countries a year now, you know what I mean? And I was also that girl who had no electricity in the house and had to charge my phone outside.
One time I was having a conversation with someone who was born and raised in Boston, and he said to me, "Are you from Boston?" And I was like, "No, I just moved out here a couple years ago. I've been involved, da 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 da." He was so struck by the fact that I was going hard for a city that I wasn't even born and raised in. And in my mind, you number one want to make sure where you live is somewhere you're actively engaged in. I don't know why you'd want to be anywhere that you're not making sure your community, at least you know about your community, number one. And then number two, whenever you can be supportive, for me, that's important. What I think truly consider my ministry to be, which is just advancing others. And as one of my sorority sisters who's very, very close to me will often say, sometimes to my detriment, I think it's really important to be, active in helping others. Just that simple.
Becoming a mom has transformed my perspective on femininity, and I was surprised to find that there were a lot of moms who wrote in, whether it was about their mothers or their relationships with their daughters. It's definitely been transformative. And even now, just sharing my experience with pregnancy and having little kids, I feel like my friends who don't yet have kids have tons of questions for me. Being in the classroom is a space where I've always felt like I can share with my students, but I found that my students that connected most with me outside of the classroom were Black girls. I have a different type of relationship with those students. I can understand where their parents are coming from when they're stressing their grades or when they're stressing them being involved in certain activities, when they're telling their Black daughters they can't do certain things that they see their peers doing. I have a little bit more sensitivity for that.
Difficulties that I had as an entrepreneur really just came from my age. I'm 26 years old. I have a salon in Brookline. A lot of people are like, how'd she do it? Who helped her? And the truth is, I had support with my parents, but I really did this all on my own. I know what it is that I want. I know what it is that I require. And if you can't provide that, then you're just gonna have to go to the left. Knowing that my work can enhance someone's beauty and they feel that means everything to me. I love when women sit in my chair. I'm their therapist, I'm their makeup artist, I'm everything in one, and they feel comfortable to talk to me about situations, life, relationships, anything. But definitely to see them get up out that chair and just feel like a whole new woman, that means everything to me. Currently, I have 2 hairstylists and 2 nail techs that work at my shop, so I am a real boss.
I feel like whenever I look at somebody, the first thing I notice is their smile and their teeth. And people always compliment me on mine,
So I was always confident even going to the dentist and being just told, oh my God, your teeth are like perfect, they're beautiful, and never needing braces. It's very vulnerable, but I've created a very safe space where people feel more comfortable doing that. And I've had several events over like the last 3 years that have been getting bigger and better, selling over 100 tickets, been able to do bottomless brunches, been able to paint nights, and teaching private classes, lessons to people, volunteering at schools where I'm teaching art classes to students, not even just in Boston, but in the Maryland school district, where there are a lot of low-income homes that can't afford art lessons or art supplies, and I've donated places, and I feel like it's a community that I'm creating, and it's just gonna keep expanding.
How did I become a Black-owned radio station owner? My whole entire life, I was gonna be a nurse. Nobody can tell me that I wasn't gonna be a nurse. And then I realized in my second year of college that that was not my ministry. You couldn't get more than 2 C's. I got 3. I decided to switch majors and I did communication. I was like, what's communication? What kind of job I could get in communication? I started to thrive. My self-esteem started to go up. My confidence started to go up because I was doing things like public speaking. And then somebody was like, well, you talk so much, why don't you do radio? I found a small internet radio station called Cyberstation USA. Later, my sister's ex-boyfriend got a DJ gig on the new Hot 97 Boston, and he needed an intern. And then from that intern position, I started to make my way up into production and on-air personality and producing my own shows and doing event management. I started to focus on my podcast, Henny and Hot Wings. So I decided to turn the podcast into a radio show, which had commercials and stuff like that. But in thinking about the podcast as a radio show, I said, well, why don't I just start a radio station? And from then I just started calling around like, hey, I'm about to start a radio station. You want a slot? Overwhelmingly, people were like, yeah, put me in for this, put me in for this. Another radio station owner was like, you can rent space from me. And then when I was going to look at the space, he was like, there's actually a room opening somewhere down the hall. That was 2 days before COVID and the world shut down. So on the first day, we had a video made that said Spark FM, the Spark of New England. And we put that out and it went viral. And it started getting picked up by different newspapers and different entities, Black Enterprise, We Buy Black. And we launched on April 20th, which is 420. The marketing around it is what we needed, which was Spark FM, Spark of New England. People are sparking up that day when people said that it wasn't gonna work or that we can't have a radio station here. It always seemed like challenges are what kind of push people and propel people to be successful. How is it being a very outspoken Black woman? They either love you or they hate you. I have been berated and cussed out for the same things that I'm being praised and awarded for. Sitting in rooms that I never thought that I would have access to, talking to people with power, interviewing the mayor, rooms that I look around and I'm like, sure I'm supposed to be here? Because I am a Black woman, film, broadcasting, media. It's not for us by design. So I'm making new paths.
I'm not sure if I can call it a career, but my first hustle was basically making sure my siblings were okay. My father being a man, he didn't understand how crucial it was for my sisters to look appropriate going to school, dressed clean and nicely. Not to say we weren't in clean clothes, but a lot of things were hand down from me and things like that. So I took on that responsibility to step in and basically start dressing my siblings so that they could feel comfortable at school, not get teased. It kind of was like the start of my career in what I'm doing now for fashion. Right now, I am a clothing brand owner, La Trappe Couture, and also a boutique owner. The hardest part of my business is finding time to stay focused and create. And I'm like a one-man show. I often get sidetracked with the business side of things, and I don't really have time to sit and kind of create. I know it's important to build a team to get to the next level. When I was 18 going on 19, I started my first business, opened a childcare, and I was able to take care of my children and also create some substantial revenue. So much that I want to do for Boston and for the youth. But along the way, I've realized that there's always someone listening, and I don't have to wait until I have a bigger platform. And many people think my platform is already big enough, and I have so much work to do in my community. La Trappe has been a journey for me. I think it probably started really early on, maybe when I was 10. I was obsessed with dressing my Barbies. I was dressing my Barbies till probably I was about 16, 17, which is late. I just had a love for fashion. Had some opportunities to dress celebrities. I styled Neil on tour. I was a part of his promotional team. That was kind of the beginning of me really saying, I think I can do this. Some years after that, I decided to go out on a limb and say, I'm just gonna go full force with this fashion stuff. So I started with hats, and then I started with a men's line only. I had a huge male following, and I also started with a male artist. So it just made so much sense for me to go into it for men. Women were super, super disgruntled. Like, girl, what are you talking about? Like, we want to wear what you're wearing. How are you going to just have a line for men? So then I added on women's. It's really, really challenging to balance both men and women. It's almost like you have two separate businesses, two separate stores. But I'm still true to like styling men and women. And now I'm completely online with everything. It's given me a lot more time and space to create. I opened my store during COVID, seen it as an opportunity to be able to negotiate prices because a lot of people were going out of business. So I said, hey, let me see what I can do. And I believe in my brand so much that I think I can still produce the numbers I need to produce even, during COVID. My dad dropped the ball a lot when I was a kid as far as like being there for graduations and recitals. I literally somewhat as a child lived in fear of my mother's death because of her involvement in the streets after her drug addiction. We kind of always used to wait for that call. We knew it was inevitable if she didn't get clean. And then in 2008, she fell victim to her addiction and passed away due to overdose. Couldn't even figure out how to express that to my friends when they were like, oh, how'd your mom pass? So for a long time, I kind of just said, oh, she died of a heart attack, until I was comfortable enough to really express how she really died.
2011, I've been a hip hop recording artist my whole life. That's what I do. In 2011, I was in Los Angeles, California, working with the late Donnie Andrews from The Wire. I got a phone call from my mom saying that my grandmother was sick. As soon as I flew back to Boston, my grandmother passed away. When I buried my grandmother on that Thursday, her birthday was that Friday. We had a cookout for her on that Saturday. And the last people at the cookout, it was me and my niece. And I dropped my niece off. I dropped my niece off. And she's like, all right, Auntie Bay, I'll see you later. I'm like, all right, niece. And that Monday, my niece was murdered, maybe 5 blocks from here. And that changed my life. That changed my life. It had me really think about the music that I was doing, what kind of image am I portraying? What am I really putting out there? And what direction am I going? I was not in a good state during that moment. You know what I mean? 6 months, I was in a bad state. How did I feel? Confused, angry, frustrated, violated, disrespected, you name it, I felt it. You know what I mean? I was didn't really know what direction to take. And I really had to get in-house counseling. I had a counselor come to my house and sit me down. And that's what changed my life that moment. He handed me a flyer from Massasoit Community College. And I've been on the run ever since.